Okay, so I've talked about how ascension is the physical incarnation of the death and the rebirth process within our own conscious awareness. It's also a physical incarnation of creation within our own physical and mental awareness, because creation started with a thought and then it turned into physical reality. And so we have to transmute our thoughts before we can see a change in our physical reality. That's the creation part of this. The death and the rebirth is we are killing our old selves. We are killing our old identities, our old roles that we used to play, and we're adopting new ones. And that's the death and the rebirth process within this situation that we have going on here. Because what happens when you pass away is you're told the truths immediately. It's called a life review. If you've ever watched anything about near-death experiences, or even psychics have tapped into this, things like that, there's this situation that happens where people go through a life review. They go through their entire life and they're shown where they didn't reconnect back to God during that lifetime. Because that's the whole point of coming down here on Earth or any planet, is that you're exploring the disconnection from God. And the goal is to reconnect back to God within your own conscious awareness, as close as you possibly can. It's like the game of incarnating, right? Because you forget. So can you even find God through forgetting? 144 on the clock. And the answer to that is no most of the time. Now, there are certain people who can get closer, but most of the time everybody gets stuck in the manipulation and shit. And so souls know this too. Like, they know that they're most likely not going to reconnect back to God. But during ascension periods, which is what we're in right now, that's different. Because there's a bunch of starseeds that come in from different planet systems that have already done this process a lot of times, where they are, set into this, like, shadow world. The worst parts of the shadow world, the tail end of the, collapse of the regimes, 222. And they then are tasked to reconnect back to God. So then, A, to teach the people here, and B, to be in place for when, the rebirth starts. And so, unfortunately, we've had to, go through death all of our lives. Now, again, this is mostly metaphorical, right? And so when you pass away, you go through this life review where you're told the truths, right? You're told, oh, you're actually a fractal of God source energy, and here's all the manipulation that prevented you from reconnecting back to God on Earth. And the next time you incarnate, this is going to be your goal, is to try to, again, reconnect back to God if you can. And so, during ascensions, we accelerate a lot of people's paths, because we all reconnect back to God, and we teach people how to reconnect back to God so they don't have to do it on their own. And the reason we do that is so, the next incarnation that they have, their brain and neural pathways and their consciousness is already, they've already gone through a lifetime where people have taught them how to reconnect back to source. So it's easier in, their next lives to reconnect back to source, because they already have, the, awareness and ability to do that. That's part of ascension too. It's not just because God's, some weird dude who likes to do this, weird shit, which is mostly the answer to that. But it's also, to, help people in their next lives. Because once something's in your consciousness, it's carried forever. Because our consciousness is infinite. Our consciousness is not tied to a body. Our consciousness, it gets incarnated into a physical brain with limitations on purpose, because that's how you disconnect from God. You are limited. You are limited in your ability to think and feel and all of that stuff. And that's why it's so this is a challenge. It's challenging. Earth is a school. Bashar talks about this. I've talked about this for many, many months now, that Earth is a school, and we have certain lessons that we agree to learn down here, and then we, gain soul traits. And that's what the spiritually gifted are. Us who have psychic abilities, us who have pattern recognition skills, us who have astrology, tarot, all this stuff. We earned that through many, 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 many lifetimes. That's how you get to spiritual gifts. You have to earn it through other lifetimes of sacrifice, or I'm going through ascension processes as well, you know. So all these people here on Earth, they are, once everything is all open and everything's, you know, the truth is out and all that stuff, these people are starting to move towards gaining spiritual abilities, because you have to live so many lives and go through these processes in order to gain spiritual abilities. So if you're spiritually gifted, like, there is, like, it's kind of a big fucking deal. It's like a really big deal that you are spiritually gifted, because you earned that through other lives. And you also sacrifice yourself in this matrix, because the spiritually gifted, we're just closer to God as well. Our oversouls are just closer to God. And this, like, terrible reality we lived in, it was terrible because we were always just closer to God and we didn't quite realize it. And then we were strategically placed around people who aren't, to serve as contrast for us, 555. And so, you know, it's really hard to accept the fact that I agreed to this. Like, there's days where I really don't want to think about that. I'm like, I don't feel like I would agree to, like, this kind of torment and torture, but it's true. Like, it is the truth. It is true but that's just truth. You know, there's objective truth, and that's what you learn when you pass away and you go through the life review process. And so that's what's happening. All the truths are being revealed to us, right? So right when you pass away, the truths are revealed to you, and then you're like, oh, fuck, that's where, like, I messed up and I didn't reconnect back to source and I got manipulated. I got stuck in that loop of conforming or not following God, even though I thought I was following God, or, you know, like, those types of things. And so it's very interesting, this whole process here, because we do not get to experience this level of, like, extremes very often at all. It's only I've been told 26,000 years that this occurs, ascension like this happens. And, you know, we're just deconstructing, you know, all of that. So that's why it's like the death and the rebirth process, because then once you go through your life review, like, you reincarnate again somewhere. Not necessarily on Earth itself. Although I have been told that it is kind of like one of those things, like, if you've agreed to be on a planet, in order to, like, get off that planet, like, you do have to, like, do this shit where you, like, overcome the programming, basically. So a lot of us right now on this ascension path, what we do is we hybridize with the human souls down here. So, like, it's hard to explain. That's what's that hybridization is hard to explain, because technically we're all hybrid souls, because even like the earth seeds, right? That's what I call them. Their consciousness started on Earth. They're hybridized with their multi-dimensional selves, but we are hybridized as starseeds and stuff. We're hybridized with not only human souls, but we're hybridized with our other planetary souls, which is why a lot of us have light language. We can remember our past lives. We can remember, like, a bunch of stuff, right? Because our consciousness just happens to exist in more dimensions. And so we agree to help people ascend and overcome the programming of their own planets, but we have to make some major sacrifices for that. And that's why this has been hard for a lot of us, because this is not our home. we're temporary, and then we hybridize with the oldest human souls down here. So I'm told, like, with my family, like, my human soul, right, that's why I'm able to, like, kind of stand up to my family and kind of be a bitch and kind of, like, you know, be a little bit different than them and, like, overcome the programming and stuff. That's my alien self. That's, like, my multiplanetary self. Now, my docile, like, I need to keep the peace and blah, 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 that's my human self. So so I'm sorry if that freaks you guys out, because it kind of freaks me out a little. Like, oh, I don't like to think about that. But that's what I'm being told. You can tell your alien self from your human self within your own self, which I'm just like, oh, I don't like that. But yeah.